Let's discuss the small bowel and what the anatomy is and how you can tell that you're working on the small bowel. So the small bowel begins from the duodenum, which attaches to the stomach, and it runs across the abdomen. That part is very vital for absorbing the nutrition and the enzymes, and the surgeons don't want to mess with that too much. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot that happens in that area, so they can usually leave it alone. Then you have the jejunum and the ileum. And where the duodenum attaches to the end of the jejunum, it comes out, it dives out below the gastrocolic ligament, and they can look for what they call the ligament of Treitz. And that's just a fine thing that you follow the jejunum up and you see it dive down and you see this little ligament, sometimes better than others, and that's where the duodenum's attaching to the jejunum. So then you go down the jejunum to the ileum, and the ileum then attaches to the large bowel, to the large bowel at the ileocecum. So the cecum is going to look like a crow's foot when you get there. That's also where the appendix is. So you can always tell when you're at the cecum because of the specific look that it has. And we'll see a picture of that in a minute. So the other thing about the small bowel is generally smaller than the large bowel, but that's not really the best way to identify it. It's also going to have no tinea on it. The tinea is the whitish muscular strands that go down the large bowel. So there's no tinea on the small bowel. And then the other thing on the small bowel, it only has one attachment, which is the mesentery. So if the surgeon's doing a bowel surgery and that they pull out the bowel and they want to run it and they pull it out on top of the abdomen, that's small bowel, because they couldn't do that with large bowel unless they detach the lateral attachment. So we'll talk about that later on. So it only has that one attachment, and because it is close enough to the gastric juices are very strong. In fact, if you put some of the gastric juices on your skin, it would eat a hole in it, or it would macerate it. So it's very strong, and that's also, as an aside, why aspiration is so deadly when you're aspirating gastric juices, because it's very caustic. So because of the acidity of the gastric juices, the small bowel is considered clean contaminated because the germs have a hard time proliferating in this area. So you have your cecum that I want to show you a picture of. So here's your cecum, where the appendix comes in and where the ileocecal valve comes in, the valve between the small and the large bowel. And you can see how it looks like a crow's foot here. So this is the anatomy of the small bowel.